Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Dharmdeo Singh. I have been with the CIFST for about 4 years now. So, on behalf of the Canadian Institute of Food Science and Technology, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2025 Knowledge Bites Fall Webinar Series. Thank you all for joining us today. We would like to acknowledge the generous support of our corporate sponsors, Lactalis Canada, our exclusive platinum sponsor for 2025, and BSA Weiberg, our bronze sponsor. Before we get started, a quick reminder to save the date. The CIFST 2026 Canadian Food Summit will be held at June 10th to the 12th in 2026 at the Hilton Mississauga Meadowvale. We look forward to seeing you there. Now, turning to today's session, our topic is Feeding the Future, Exploring Market Forces Shaping Consumer Buying Behavior. We're delighted to have with us Rob Powell, President and owner of Chris Core and Associates, and he was also the past president of CIFST. To kick things off, let us get to know our speaker a little bit better. Rob, could you please share a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the industry for primarily the food ingredient industry for many years, and a longtime member of CFST. And as you mentioned, I was past president, so and always like to contribute to CFST with this type of thing. But I have a great passion for the food business, the food ingredient business, and particularly how it affects consumers and the consumer buying behavior. So it was a real pleasure for me to get the invite to present today. So thank you.
Awesome. Just
Mhm.
just some more information. Throughout today's presentation, we encourage you to engage with us. If you have any
Please
questions at
do.
all for Rob, please submit them using the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. We will address them during the Q&A segment. Rob, over to you.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining and spending your lunch hour with us. And again, please feel free to answer questions anytime that we're as I go through this presentation. So as Dharam Deo has mentioned, this is about exploring some market forces and shaping a little bit about consumer buying behavior and how that affects our industries as well. A little bit more about my company. We do represent Census, chicory root inulin, and Co-Sun fava bean protein isolate, and I also look after post-consumer brands bulk cereal ingredients in North America. So, as mentioned, we'll explore some market forces and influences on consumer buying behavior and how that ultimately affects our businesses. And then we'll finish the presentation with some new product innovation. And as we start, I'll start first with just some macro trends, talk some of the bigger picture things. There's the shifting demographics in Canada, the aging population, the different generations. We all have different dietary needs. And the widening socioeconomic gap is really interesting that the erosion of the middle class we're seeing more of the haves and the have-nots. The convenience is still a big thing, more so now than as we've come out of the COVID era of lockdowns. We need convenience. Consumers want convenience. Grab and go is still popular. Grocery deliver is still popular, and meal kits, things like that. Environmental concerns, of course, we're still focused on sustainability and reducing food waste. But the bulk of this presentation today will be in the health and wellness space, particular as it concerns consumers. We'll talk a little bit about functional foods, weight wellness, metabolic health, plant protein, animal protein, and ultra processed foods. So before we start, one of the big disruptors that the industry is facing and affecting consumers is food inflation. And we have to really talk about it in context that affordability is the number one concern for Canadians. And how bad is food inflation? Well, you can see it's about 3.5% nationally, 4% for our East Coast friends. Unfortunately, they're getting hit pretty hard with food inflation. And that's costing Canadian families more every year, up to $16,000 a year they spend on the average consumer spends on groceries, about $800 more this year. The forecast is for another 3.5% inflation next year. And you can see where the inflation has occurred between June and August or this year. And but interesting, if you take meat inflation out of the equation, food inflation drops to around 2%, which is really kind of encouraging. So if we can get meat inflation under control, then food inflation will certainly drop overall. But what this does is exacerbates a problem that we already have in Canada, and it's about 10.3 million Canadians live in food insecure households, which for a G7 nation, not a good look. And we have over 2 million Canadians visiting food banks every month, and that's 90% more than 2019. So again, consumers are feeling the pinch. So let's jump to about smart technology and AI because we can't really underestimate the impact this has on consumers and on our businesses. And now that we're all sort of globally linked, thanks to companies like Starlink, really there's no corner of the planet that doesn't have high speed, low latency internet access. Of course, having information at your fingertips. And one of the big things that comes from that is the impact of social media. Social media is prevalent and is really a big influence in how consumers get their information about their food and about any products, really, and what they buy and what they shouldn't buy. In fact, there's about 5.24 million people that use social media globally. That's half the world's population. And you can see social media platforms like Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram still kind of leading the way. And what this does do, it gives rise to influencers and bloggers like these two characters. And consumers are following this en masse on these type of guys. So here's just two examples. Bobby Parrish, the guy holding the Skippy peanut butter, he has an Instagram following of 3.4 million followers and 10.2 million people on YouTube. And this guy will go into the store like this. And in this case, he's pointing out Skippy peanut butter. And he's saying, don't buy Skippy peanut butter because it has cottonseed oil, rapeseed oil, vegetable oil, hydrogenated vegetable oil, and it's not good for you. And then he compares it to a natural peanut butter. And the interesting thing about this is when you look at the company that makes Skippy, like Hormel and the Skippy brand, they would only have a following of about 20,000 people on Instagram. So the point is, who has more influence in buying and selling Skippy peanut butter in this case would be the grocery guy, right? Bobby Parrish. And Paul Saladino, another a medical doctor who talks often about our food supply and how some foods that claim to be healthy are in fact fake foods. But what social media does do for our companies and for individuals is it levels the playing field with the big international players. So a small medium enterprise can put their new product on social media and get a big recognition, and they become more agile than the larger brands. And there's a propensity to create people that are propensity to try new products when you see them on social media. And but the exponential advances in I can tell you, are just neck breaking. That speed is just, it's hard to even keep up to it. In fact, in a recent report, Workalytics has said 2025 is the year of intelligent transformation, and that for our businesses to adopt AI and to drive innovation and efficiency or risk stagnation and obsolescence. And so this is a major issue. And if your companies and if you're as individuals not adopting AI, we're going to certainly fall behind. Whoops, sorry, let me just get that back. And a recent interview I read with Lieber at IFT, in the Food Ingredients First magazine, that she states that AI can offer valuable considerations and callouts during early stages of food product development, from blue sky iterations to rapid iterations. And I think that's certainly true. And one last part on this is the rise of robotics. We've seen this before, but when you're looking at something like Tesla, the Optimus robot, and 4 years ago it was in generation one, and now they're on Gen 3, and they're starting to mass produce these things at about $20,000 each. So, and as Elon Musk states, these robots will far exceed the population of humans. Don't know if that's true. When you take into account how many companies and how many individuals will want to own one of these things. They're talking about being below around $10,000 mark in the next 3 to 5 years. So it's coming. The toothpaste is out of the tube here. The robots are going to be with us. Okay, so jumping in now to sort of the wellness space, and how consumers are doing. And if you look at the data that's out there, 83% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. So the consumer population is not healthy. And this number is actually a little bit low because it's from a 2018 study. It's probably closer to 87% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And Canadians aren't faring much better. 44% of Canadian adults 20 plus have one of 10, at least one of 10 chronic diseases, whether that's cancer, osteoporosis, heart disease, asthma, osteoarthritis. It's staggering, really, when you look at these numbers. And 65% of Canadians are obese and are overweight. So it's not getting better. It's going the wrong way. So the question then becomes, why is this happening? And it's a complex issue. Why are we metabolically unhealthy? And some point to our sedentary lifestyle. In fact, during the lockdowns, obesity rates went up about 2%. So there's certainly something to that we do live a more sedentary lifestyle. So there's that. Some say it's the amount of calories we actually consume, and that's true. In the 60s, we consumed about 2,700 calories per day. That's now up to 3,800 calories per day. So no question, we're consuming 1,100 calories more than we were many, many years ago. But we know that calories are not all calories are created equal. So it's the type of calories that we're consuming that may be affecting our overall metabolic health. In fact, as we've heard much about in social media circles for sure, and in some of the journals, that ultra processed foods are sort of the culprit. And that's where the fingers are pointing right now, to ultra processed food products. And there's some studies to support that. So there's a recent study, the rising obesity epidemic in the US, as well as related chronic disease, are correlated with a rise in ultra processed food consumption. Didn't say caused, but it is correlated too. And in fact, 50% or 60% now of the calories consumed by Canadians are from ultra processed foods. And of course, causing the greater likelihood for obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. And it really is a very interesting take on this. So it's primarily Canada, the UK, and United States that get that kind of percent of their energy, high percentage of their energies from ultra processed foods, which is probably why you're seeing a rise in the Ozempic factor, I call it. The GLP-1 drugs are increasing rapidly in North America and in the UK. Although, no, sorry, not in the UK, because I don't think it's allowed there yet. But it's uniquely North American. And that's not good news for our businesses, because consumers are consuming less of the foods that we produce. So, what's this mean for the industry? I think ultra processed foods can and should be healthier. And I think it offers a significant growth potential for healthy natural ingredients, additives, product innovation, and so forth. So it's certainly heading that way, and we'll show some products where that's the case. But when you look at and you ask consumers what do you consider healthy, this was a survey in 2023, Food and Health Survey International, and their top choices for what they consider healthy is fresh, low in sugar, good source of protein, natural, good source of fiber, less common but still important, organic, limited or no artificial ingredients, limited number of ingredients overall, non-GMO, all these kind of things. Interestingly enough, and maybe inflation has an impact on this, produce that is environmentally sustainable is not so important for consumers, even though there's a lot of focus on that. In fact, that number is down from the previous survey down to 7%. So let's then jump quickly into some market segments and look at some product innovation. It's a confusing landscape for consumers because there's so many different claims, from grass-fed and glyphosate, non-GMO, plant-based, animal-free, gluten-free, and so on. So we'll look at a few of these things. And one of the first things I'd like to sort of just highlight is the ingredients that we are seeing, and what's hot and what's sort of not in the ingredient space. And what you're seeing a lot of is, of course, fiber, pre-pro symbiotics. Animal protein is on the rise again, actually, popularity, dairy proteins, sugar reduction, of course, organic, anything organic, healthy oils, gluten-free seeds, hemp, adaptogens, vitamin D12. So those are sort of the hot ingredients, I call them. What's sort of on the way out or not so popular, GMOs, anything artificial. And I can tell you from the cereal business and the confectionery business, they're scrambling in the United States now to replace artificial colors. That's not going to be an easy thing, even though in other jurisdictions like Canada and Europe, they use more natural colors, but it is a big cost impact for those companies, and it's going to be some consumer pushback on that in the United States, I believe. But other things like antibiotics, seed oils, nitrates, herbicides, pesticides, and so on, microplastics. Okay. Protein is extremely popular, as we all know, and many of us have probably been working on these. So let's jump in a little bit. How popular is it? Demand continues to grow. The plant protein market is about 23 billion in size now, with 8.7% annual growth, growing faster than the animal protein sector at this stage. The animal protein sector is still, protein ingredient sector is still larger at about $60 billion. So let's first start a little bit about the plant-based protein because it's been a real bumpy road for especially the alt dairy and the alt meat categories. And as this report, New Nutrition Business, points out, plant-based alternatives were a consultant and media-driven hot take catastrophe. And when you look at companies like Beyond Meat, who have never made a profit in their 15-year existence, have a $1.3 billion loss on their balance sheet, as does Oatly, who is often described as being the successful, alt dairy product. Never has not hasn't made a profit since 2014. In Europe, same thing. Arla Dairy, one of the larger dairies in Europe, launched a product called Yord, and they've since discontinued it earlier this year. And we see the same with Lactalis, dropping their product Enjoy. I mean, it's even had an impact on mainstays like Eve's Veggie Cuisine. I was quite shocked to see this, that it's being discontinued. This brand has been around for, I believe, 40 years. But when you look at that market for fresh meat alternatives, the latest study shows that that market has been down 21% from a year ago. So it's not a wonder to see this disappear. And unfortunately, they were very good products, but consumers just aren't accepting it or aren't buying them. So where is the plant-based products thriving? Well, you can see in the organic protein supplement space, and in this case, Orgain is a plant-based protein powder. It uses pea protein, brown rice protein, mung bean protein, among others. And so it's popular and doing well in the marketplace. We see some launches in the bar category. So Bobo is a pretty recent launch in the United States. It's all plant-based, glyphosate-free, non-GMO, gluten-free, and it's doing well with consumers. Another bars lend themselves very well, by the way. You'll see quite a few examples of bars that I'll point out lend themselves well to these types of applications. But in this case, this is another plant-based bar, 11 grams of fiber, 8 grams of protein. They use fava bean protein crisps and fava bean protein isolate and some brown rice protein as well. And they use stevia leaf for their sweetener. It's another. And some of the bigger brands like have jumped in. Of course, they've got their in the United States the Protein Max Bar, which is 20 grams of protein, primarily from the peanuts and from their soy protein isolate, and it's doing well in the marketplace for sure. This is a product from Great Britain, 16 grams of plant protein, and they're using all organic product, pea protein, sprouted brown rice protein, and organic hemp protein, which is, I think, really interesting. And they also use cashews in their organic, some of the protein from their cashews. And we have a shake entry here from Simply Protein. It has 20 grams of protein per serving, and they use primarily pea protein isolate in their drink. And it is a very good product, actually. One of the bigger growth categories right now is in hybrid proteins, so plant and animal blends. And we see this all over the world. In the UK, here's a bar. It's a low carb, high protein bar using soy protein crisps blended with whey protein concentrate. Pretty much so, good product. Another bar here from Barbells, they're using whey protein isolate, whey protein concentrate, and hydrolyzed collagen, and some soy protein, little blends. And this is interesting. Just launched this year in the United States, Mission Barns. They're using a cultivated pork, and they blend it with various different plant proteins like pea protein, fava bean protein, flaxseed, wheat protein. The jury's out. We don't know how well it's doing yet in the marketplace, whether or not consumers will accept a cultivated product. But time will tell. Apparently, these products did really well in consumer panels, so time will tell. But it's an interesting mix of animal and plant proteins. In the animal protein space, really quite interesting if you look at what's happening south of the border. Meat snacking is now one of the fastest growing categories in the United States with over $4.5 billion this year. And Chomps is leading the way. And it's interesting that 70% of the Chomps consumers are women who are looking for grass-fed, grass-finished, clean protein sources. So, and they just can't keep these things on the shelves. Other entries that I think are interesting is a General Mills entry here from they own Epic Meats. It's a bison grass-fed 11-gram protein bar. They source their beef from or their meat from regenerative ranches, and is said to be better for the environment because it increases carbon sequestration. It's an ecosystem. It's biodiversity. It's resilience for farmers and overall soil health. It's so you're seeing more of this kind of sustainable farming and ranching. Jacob Bar is the world's cleanest protein bar, 20 grams of grass-fed protein and organic ingredients all throughout, including tapioca, honey, beef tallow, almonds, and so on. And it's actually a really good bar. And it's apparently doing very well in the United States, especially. I found this really interesting because it's the first time I've seen a product with colostrum in it, nature's most complete superfood. It is a bovine colostrum with grass-fed protein blend, and I think we're going to see more of this kind of product and ingredient colostrum in different applications. A more typical snack, it's not in the protein space, but I thought it was really interesting. We're seeing more. We mentioned seed oils. We're kind of on the way out. There's a lot of companies that are taking advantage of that. There's a lot of burger chains in the United States that are now frying in beef tallow again. And Ranchers has launched a product with beef tallow. And it's interesting, their description that they say this delivers a classic flavor reminiscent of early McDonald's French fries, which prior to 1995 fried in beef tallow. So starting to see beef tallow enter into the equation. In fact, you can buy it now, beef tallow in Costco, and you can buy other saturated fats like ghee and butter in bulk. So moving on to the sugar category, because we've all been working on projects to reduce sugar or take out sugar completely from our products. And consumers, Canadians do consume a lot of sugar, about 33 kilograms of sugar consumption per capita per year. That's a whole lot of sugar. And the industry has offered up quite a few solutions to that. Of course, there's the natural other sweeteners like honey, maple syrup, fruit extracts, not necessarily better for you, but the connotation and depending on how they're using it. But there are some good options like stevia, allulose, FOS, inulin, IMO, and monk fruit that we're starting to see more and more of in these products, and less of the high intensity sweeteners like aspartame and acesulfame K, and less of the sugar alcohols. And out of the gate, early out of the gate was Smart Sweets. They've done a really good job in reducing sugar in these products, and these guys are just become huge. And they, in this case, 3 grams of sugar per serve per bag, and they use primarily IMO and chicory root and stevia for the sweetness. Another General Mills entry here is, I think, interesting because it's a ratio keto bar. They call it. It's only 1 gram of sugar, and they use erythritol and stevia, which is a very interesting blend. And this bar does really well. Pretty good whack of protein as well. 12 grams of protein per bar. My favorite category is the fibers, prebiotics, and gut health. We're seeing a lot of activity in this space. More and more. And the reason for that is that consumers are now, whoops, sorry about that. Consumers are now more aware of the microbiome, about gut health. They're more aware of what a prebiotic is versus what a probiotic is. And thanks to this Netflix specials and other social media impact. If you haven't seen this yet, it's on Netflix still. It's called Hack Your Health. They do a really good job at explaining this to consumers. And um, and we all know the health benefits of fiber, and yet 95% of Canadians are only getting about half the required amount. And that is probably going to get worse because there's a call for many nutritionists and dietitians are calling for 50 grams a day of fiber, and that's pretty significant. Uh, but there are plenty of products on the market. Another bar here has 48% of the daily fiber. It's 12 grams of fiber, grains, seeds, non-GMO, certified vegan, and they do a really good job. It's a really good tasting product. And they're using a wheat protein isolate in here as well. Oh, sorry about that. A newer entry, and this one's interesting, and is doing really well with consumers right now. It's called Phiome. It's a daily fiber support. They're little bites you take with you when you want to, have a quick snack, perhaps with your coffee. It's all natural. It's helping to improve bowel regularity and better digestion, and banishing bloat and optimal gut health. These are really tasty. The number one ingredient in it is inulin, with banana, dates, chia seeds, sunflower butters, and doing very well in the marketplace so far. Of course, we've all seen in the news lately the Poppy and Olipop, the prebiotic type beverages. And Poppy calls out, healthy gut on their can. Olipop actually calls out prebiotics on their can, and supports digestive health. You can see they're both totally different ingredients, but they both tout low sugar as well. Olipop only has 2 grams of sugar. Poppy has 5 grams of sugar versus a typical soda, which has 39 grams of sugar. So Some very unique ingredients in Olipop, as you can see, the kudzu root, cactus, inulin, marshmallow root, and so on. But very, very tasty products if you haven't had them. Very good. Here's an entry in the a bar again, prebiotic and probiotic. So they're using IMO again, soluble tapioca fiber, and Bacillus coagulans probiotic, and it's doing well with and resonating well with consumers. This is a first. This is the first we've seen in this space. It's in the United States. I think it's in Texas. It's the first product that has a postbiotic, which is very interesting because a postbiotic is not a living microorganism, but rather a non-viable microbial cell that provides health promoting properties, especially for immune support. And so they tout this as, have you have your afternoon slump at 3 o'clock, grab one of these cookies along with some tea or a coffee and help your immune system at the same time. And so far, it's doing well in the market. And if you can't get your fiber from food source, then there's all kinds of supplements. The gummy category is exploding. There's literally dozens of organic fiber gummies and other fiber gummies, prebiotic gummies, and so on. So lots of growth in that kind of category. So getting to the end here, emerging foods, what's the future hold? I think it's very interesting to me to see what might come in the next little while. Certainly, we're starting to see adaptogens find their way into the market. There's a line of bars here that use all kinds of mushroom type products, ashwagandha, turkey tail, chaga, lion's mane, reishi, and so these are in the market now and apparently doing quite well. Here's a coffee substitute, I'll call it. It's a coffee creamer functional mushrooms in it, layered superfood. I've tried this product. It's pretty good. It's certainly if you're not into having too much caffeine, you might want to try this. Apparently, it's pretty good. You're going to see more products with this kind of ingredients, these kind of ingredients. Creatine is becoming very popular with the protein movement. People are realizing creatine really helps, not only with muscle mass or muscle toning, but also at certain levels. Creatine has been shown now to help with brain health and cognition. So we're seeing more and more products coming to market that have creatine blended with it, in this case with probiotics as well. This product is from Turkey, and they have a couple of energy bars, one with vitamins and caffeine. Apparently, it has one shot of espresso equivalent per bar, and another energy bar with vitamins and ginseng. So the point here is you're going to see more, I think, of these types of blends with vitamins and other minerals and caffeine and ginseng and so on, adaptogens. This product is from Bali. I think is very interesting because they're using red rice in these little granola bites. So they get the flavonoids, anthocyanins, and they're using a Lontar sugar from the Lontar palm, which apparently is low glycemic index. So you're going to see some new variations on different types of sugars in products like this. This is an interesting another bar again with erythritol and allulose and monk fruit and stevia. So it uses a whole blend of different sweeteners in this case, and I think you're going to see more of that kind of thing with hemp and MCT oil, and it's apparently good for consumers as well. I tried this product a year ago at Natural Products Expo West, and I was so impressed. It only has 9 grams of sugar. It has 23 milligrams of CBD in it and no active ingredient like THC, but really, really good product, organic hemp and organic ginger root. And apparently it's doing well in the marketplace too, and it's affordable, and that's the one thing that all of these things they need to be affordable, right? There's more and more products, medicinal using medicinal ingredients coming to market. In this case, Beekeepers is doing a great job with their lollipop type um, products for soothing sore throats, or just for a snack for kids if they want a lollipop. Why not give them this, right? There's vitamin D, zinc, chicory root fiber, monk fruit in their sweetener, and I'm doing really well, especially this time of year when it's cold and flu season. Fine, we'll end up here. This is interesting to me because the first product I've seen in the market that's touting glyphosate free. And it's a really interesting product. And I put the QR code there because it's quite interesting. When you're in this in store, you scan the QR code with your phone, and it'll take you to a little video snippets of each farmer that contributes to this granola blend. And each farmer will talk through full transparency, how they harvest their product or how they grow their product and how it gets to market. And so it's a really interesting around transparency. And I think that's consumers are looking for more of that in the future for sure. And final thought, we're seeing a lot of research in anti-aging and a lot of in the nutraceutical space and the pharmaceutical space that are making their way into the food chain. So things like quercetin and astralagus we just mentioned, collagen, CoQ10, some of these ingredients will find their way into the food supply chain probably within the next couple of years. So I'll leave you with that. And I think we're done a little bit early, which is good. And hopefully you guys have some questions.
That was amazing, Rob. I appreciate it. I had no idea they had so many alternative sort of healthy food products out there.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Really
it's
interesting.
it's really changing. The landscape is changing significantly and quickly. And it's actually really hard to keep up with. And I know many businesses I talk to struggle with, oh, what do consumers want? Where where do we how do we improve our products? What type of products are people going to buy? And when you have a socioeconomic gap, it's not easy because there's some of these products are expensive, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're talking organic versus conventional. There's some people that can't afford them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's
that's a
true.
dilemma.
We do have a few questions in the chat. The first one is from someone anonymous said, "Do
Okay.
you realize that all the snack bars you highlighted are all ultra processed foods?"
Yes, they are. Yes. And that was my point when I said ultra processed foods can be made healthier,
Yeah.
right? So consumers want they want that convenience, right? Everybody wants to grab a bar or everyone wants to grab a bag of something. And there's not a lot of home preparation going on anymore. People don't cook a lot at home. So when they're out,
Yeah.
they want a meal, or when they're, in their car going to work. I mean, I see it when I'm sitting at Starbucks in the morning. People come in and buy these ultra processed foods, and some of them aren't so healthy, and some of the drinks they choose are not, they're just
Yeah.
laden with sugars, right?
Yeah.
So yes, but that's a good question, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah. Another question from Vijay. Vijay asks, "What is cultivated pork?"
Yeah, well, they take primarily pork cells, and they cultivate it in a vat. Okay, and they grow these cells in a vat. I'm not too sure how they do that, but they grow these cells, and they primarily fat cells, so that it has that texture as well. And then yeah, um, they're starting to do this on at scale, and it'd be interesting to see how that Mission Barnes product does
Yeah.
because it's something that's totally new, and I don't know how consumers will accept it. They didn't like the alt meat products. I'm not
Yeah.
too sure they're going to like the cultivated product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know they're doing it with chicken as well.
Yeah, they're doing it with chicken as well. Yeah. hmm
Yvonne sent a question. What is the average lifespan of these new functional foods?
The lifespan of functional foods, I'm not sure I get that. What is the
It's probably the shelf life, I'm guessing, how long they would last. I'm guessing. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, from a shelf life perspective, a lot of them have the depending on how they're packaged and so on, they might not have a 1 year shelf life. Some of the, like the bars, they can last for many months, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It depends on the product and it depends on the packaging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another anonymous attendee said, I'm curious why you foresee more of a blending of alt sweeteners in the future versus producers choosing one.
Oh, you mean, sorry, I'm not sure I get that question.
I'm not sure. Yeah. If you can
Yeah.
expand on it, that would help. Um,
Yeah, the blended sweeteners. So I think it depends on the taste profile they want, right? So if you're blending erythritol with stevia, perhaps it's to get the right flavor profile that the manufacturer is looking for, right?
yeah.
Based on the consumer panels, it might be too sweet, it might be too the early iterations of stevia had that sort of licorice taste that people didn't like. And so I think it's a way to blend the sweeteners to get the sweetener profile that they want to emulate what sugar might taste like, right? Ultimately.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have lots of questions here. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Vasanta said, excellent lecture, Rob. Do you think global leaders of food manufacturing, such as GM and Nestle, would change current unhealthy ultra-processed foods products to sustainable, healthy category in the near future?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think yes, they're going to do that. And in fact, when you see some of the products like that Epic Meat Bar that I said, that's a General Mills product. They bought that company, right? So I don't know when you look at some of the big cereal companies, for example, like even like Post, their big sellers are the sweetened, Pebbles type sugary high color product. And so legislatively they're being forced to change that,
Yeah,
to take the colors down. But it is about for the big companies and small, it's all about profit. It really is. So you have to be able to do this and still make money and appease your shareholders.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm not. There certainly the big companies don't move quickly when they have to do this or they're getting pressure to do it. So what they'll do is they'll buy a company, right? They'll buy an innovative company like
yeah,
Epic Meats or you know Kellogg's bought Kashi years ago because Kashi was in that organic, healthy space, right?
yeah.
I think that's where that's going. Yeah.
Anna Sharpio has a question. Says, "Hello, thank you, Dr. Kowal, for your presentation. My question referred to seed oils that all of a sudden have a negative image. Why? Large public probably does not know that canola oil is rapeseed minus ur uric acid,
Yeah.
although technology exists for years. Canola oil is excellent oil in terms of fatty acid composition.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, and I'm saying I say that because I think the consumers are certainly getting their information from social media. You see, that's the downside, if you will, of social media because is the information they're getting accurate? So, and you'll see some science experts or doctors saying that seed oil, the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is not the same as a natural fat, right? Like a butter or
Yeah,
a saturated fat. So there's a lot of companies playing that. I don't know how if that trend will continue. I don't disagree. I think the canola that we make in Canada certainly is good oil. But there is that consumer concern, and I think that's coming from the social media circles, right?
yeah. And just a
Yeah.
follow-up on Yvonne's question, she made a clarification. It wasn't about shelf life. She was asking how long these foods are on the market for.
Oh, well, it depends. Some are on the market for a long time. I think like any product, people get fatigued from a product, and maybe they'll try something else. But when you look at some of the more functional type products like Smart Sweets, around for a long time. Some of the other functional foods like the bars, they're there, and that's a saturated market too. The bar market's very saturated, but some of these products resonate well, not only with people that are in, let's say, the health space, the workout, the fitness guys, but it's also resonating with consumers that want, for example, high protein. snack because they know they need to get more protein and they're not getting enough in their regular diets. So
Yeah.
I don't know, Yvonne. It depends on the mass appeal that it gets. Some of these are niche, and then they either make it to mainstream or they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
And
hard to say.
yeah, and we'll just take two last questions and then before we wrap up. So
Hmm.
the next one is from Trish. Trish says, have you noticed the trend among consumers in terms of preferring one alternate sweetener over another? That is stevia versus monk fruit versus xylitol.
Yeah, sure. I think stevia is certainly people are gravitating more towards stevia. And I think you're going to start seeing some in the United States allulose as well at this stage. But yeah, stevia seems to be the one where people are moving to. Monk fruit, though, is still newer in that sense. I think you'll see monk fruit as well becoming more popular, and it'll depend on the cost and again on the manufacturer and their sweetener targets, what they're trying to achieve. Because monk fruit might work better in one application versus stevia and vice versa, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or it could be a blend again. Yeah.
That's true. And the last question is from VJ. He asks, do you think that companies like Kraft, Heinz, Mars will change their way towards healthier foods?
Yeah, I think so. I think they have to. I think there's going to be consumer pressure to do that, and I think Nestle has dabbled in that, and they're trying to make their food products healthier. And some of it, as I mentioned before, some of it's being forced legislatively. When you look at the ultra processed foods, if you will, in Europe, many of them are healthier than the types of products we have here because they have
Yeah,
different legislation. Some of their ingredients are banned over there that aren't here, those kind of things. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think they will. Yeah,
I find one of the most alarming things that you showed is that, those wealthier countries um using more ultra processed foods as opposed to like, those country that faces more economic pressures. And it
yeah,
might suggest that there's possibly a relationship between like let's say convenience or time or consuming buying behavior or
sure.
something like that.
Hmm.
That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, but you know what? I just got back from Portugal. I was in vacation there, and it's really tough to find an ultra processed food there. I mean, they're little
Yeah,
kiosks. You go in, you can still buy fruit and vegetables and little snacks, and you can buy little fruit bowls or whatever as a snack, as opposed to a
yeah,
chocolate bar or an ultra processed food, right? So
yeah,
there is interesting to see when you look for it. It's hard to find an ultra processed sort of unless you go to a small convenience store or a touristy type
yeah.
supermarket. Yeah.
That's awesome. Uh,
Yeah.
well, th thank you so much,
That's
Rob.
good.
I know that
Yeah.
you probably have lots more questions. You guys, if they can feel free to reach out to you
Sure.
regarding this,
Anytime.
that would be amazing. Thank you all
Anytime.
for
Yeah.
coming. Rob, on behalf of CIFST,
Yeah.
thank you so much. This was a really thought-provoking presentation, and it is
Yeah,
very
thanks.
informative with all the new products that are out there.
Yeah. Thanks, Darmadale. Yeah, and
No
Thank you for
worries.
hosting. Appreciate it.
No worries. Always happy to.
Thank you.
And everyone, before we wrap up, we just want to invite you for our next session. It'll be on the fermentation of mushroom waste to produce umami extracts. And this is going to be by Zenab Rezavi, who is a PhD candidate at the food and a food science researcher at the University of Guelph. And this will happen on December 3rd, Wednesday, December 3rd at 12 o'clock, again, EST. Registration is open on the CIFST website and it's free for all CIFST members. Thanks everyone for your participation today. We look forward to
Thanks,
having you
everyone.
on having knowledge bite sessions. Thank you. Thanks again, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.